Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to do those questions, the Dr. Scott short questions. This one's kind of straightforward in how we might communicate with that one. So, do we have to wait for Trump to be in office before the normies believe it? Um, uh, Let me answer that in a couple ways because I'm going to show you a couple things. By the way, I'm not trying to just over push something here, but I just finished this today. You can go drscott.com. I'll take that off the screen. drscottyoung.com, and you can download under the download section. It has response to the QFS. If people want to know more about that, that's something to look at. Okay, let's go over here because this actually is why I wrote the book, Revelations of the Red Pill. Okay, you can also see that on drscottyoung.com. You just go to the bookstore and you'll see Revelations of the Red Pill. Okay, so that's my first beginning of that issue with that too. Listen, most people there's a certain number of people who kind of woke up for several reasons before 2020. I was one of those that did in 1992. And by the way, it's a slow burn of waking up. You start seeing things and you go, wait a second, that doesn't fit. Well, that doesn't fit. Wait a second, that doesn't fit either. Okay. Now, what you're looking for are things that don't add up to official narratives, right? And that's actually an interesting point that I had a class at John Brown University was asking about, wanted to interview me for the conspiracy theory. And it was a really bad situation. I mean, they interviewed me for an hour and a half and only had like less than about 3 minutes of clips. And they took some of the worst clips out there. And I'm going, and this is how narratives are created with that too. Conspiracy theory, people go, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. Okay, what's your point? Is that, or they say to you, well, that's just a conspiracy theory, as if that answers the question. The reality is, our friends and family members that we know that haven't believed this stuff, they have gone through 2020 and some of the greatest wickedness that you can come up with. I mean, everyone's standing 6 feet apart as if that stops a virus, right? I mean, 7 feet doesn't. But if you're at 5 feet, oh, for sure it does. You walk into a restaurant and you have the mask on, and then you sit down at the table and you can suddenly take the mask off. Some of these people that made masks that open up like this as they chewed, like, wait a second. They're musicians. The kids who are musicians had masks with their, the mouth cut around it. I mean, you're just going, wait, doesn't that just kind of smack you in a different way? And right now, the hospitals of many of the states, including in Tulsa, have decided to go full mask issues and full jabs to every single person that walks in there. I mean, and you go, wait a second. People aren't walking around. Just think straight on this one. People aren't walking around with a mask right now, so they have to walk around in a hospital for that. Does it fix it? Right? So all that stuff is the 2020 stuff. And then we go farther and we see the irregularities and the weirdness about Joe Biden and a cackling Kamala. Joe Biden that can't even get six people in a circle, right? And anywhere Trump is filling stadiums everywhere he goes. His last in 2020, right before the 2020 election, he stops at, and I'm going to say the name, I think it's Scranton, Pennsylvania, but don't get me wrong here. I mean, I could be wrong on that one. It's an unscheduled stop. I mean, they basically knew about it hours before, kind of thing, which is sort of scheduled, I guess you'd say that. And here's what they did. They stopped out and there were miles and miles of cars. They got more than 10 to 15,000 people to walk in. And he loses the election. We have John Fetterman in 22 that wins an election who wears only a hoodie. Like, make this make sense, right? And people have been looking at these things over and over again, and they haven't awakened. They've seen this information and they go, well, so we thought, I mean, many of us thought, now you might get mad at me because I thought for sure that this would be done in 2020. And then as we went past 2020 into the 2021 craziness, I thought, okay, for sure it's going to be done before the next election. Why would they do another fraudulent election? And then it didn't happen then. And the one thing that I kept coming back to, where a lot of people lost hope, my faith was in the substance of what I had. Okay, and let's just say I'm going to use this notebook here. Okay, these are notebooks I just make notes on, right? And just say these are my notes for different things, and I'm resting upon the notes of the evidence of what I've found. Let's say that's what people need to be doing. See, they're not resting on the evidence; they just rest upon what someone else said. And I go, how is that helping you? And then, so we have people who, I mean, just today, my wife is telling me about people in our neighborhood who are asking, why aren't there enough eggs around that we can't buy eggs? Why are restaurants closing? Why are, why is the price of eggs going up so dramatically? I'm going, have you not like watched anything that's happened around you? Do you not see an economy in free fall? And yet some of these people have more money than I do, but more money and capabilities to, kind of ride above the fray. And so they're kind of the white liberals of freaks. And you're going, you don't even live what you believe. There are other people who are older or are incapable of getting on social media for whatever reason, kind of circumstance, but just because technology, they just don't have ability for technology. There are a lot of people like that. I see them in my office all the time. They might not know about this stuff, but in many of these same people, we know that not just 80% Trump won in 2020, more like 90% or better in 2024. This is telling you on many levels, this thing is absolutely nuts. And so you say, does Trump have to be in office for this to happen? Maybe. I mean, maybe for some people to do it. But here's what happens when you believe incredibly late. What happens is you're behind in everything that happens. Let's say you are an influential speaker on YouTube, or you are a teacher in a university, or you're a teacher in a school system, or you have to be a board member and everyone's looking to you for the information, or you're just a business owner kind of thing. You're a leader in some way. What happens when you miss it? What occurs is that everything stops in your life. Once this thing kind of comes out, and by the way, today is the 3rd of January. I would have thought it's over. Of course, I'm just right with you. But we also have January 6th that they're talking about. The press secretary, Gene or whatever it is, has been stating now that they might slow roll out the inauguration ability and letting the transition of power happen. Like, why? It's because they're terrified of Trump getting in. They were terrified in 2016, 2017. Deep inside people were absolutely terrified for Trump getting in. Why? What did they know? Hey, listen, he's outside the systems and everything else. But what were they told? I'm telling you guys, someone of these insiders, the sickos, were told what would happen when Trump is in office. This was whether it was said, directly to them or indirectly, they knew something was going to happen. And why don't the normies get it? It's because of the press. The press is hopelessly ridiculous. The three-letter agencies don't do anything correctly anymore. And so you have all of these people that should keep the normal person informed. The normal person gets up in the morning, barely has time to kind of get their coffee, get out the door, go to work, go to school, whatever that might be, come home, take care of the kids, maybe. I mean, have to fix broken things around the house. They might watch a little bit of TV. They want to watch their sports and go to bed, kind of thing, right? They don't have time to get involved in that stuff. And yet, people who haven't really paid attention to this are very confused right now. They don't know what to say. They're actually pulling away from all of the social media that tells them the opposite effect because most people operate in fear. And so they don't believe it because it's not in their face. Jesus had a very fascinating thing as I finish here with this. Doubting Thomas doesn't believe anything about the resurrection of Christ. This is in John, I believe it's in chapter 20, if I remember right. And he's standing there in front of the women who've seen him and all the disciples who've seen him as well. And he's going, I won't believe it. I'm not going to do it. And it sounds like they've been debating for hours with him. And he goes, listen, if I don't put my fingers in his hands, the nail prints, right? If I don't put my finger in his side, I'm not going to believe it. He needs tangible proof. Jesus shoots right through the door, walks in, makes everyone like spit up their Wheaties, and walks up to Thomas to say, put your hands in here. Put your fingers in here. Put your hands in my side, which means it's a gaping wound, right? And then Thomas says something fascinating that there are several people. Andrew Womack actually has a statement about him, and it's a very interesting point. In John 20, he says, "My Lord and my God." That is one of the first times he says, "My Lord and Savior," in essence. It's the very first time we've ever seen that. And so he says, good thing, Jesus says to him, good thing you finally figured it out. Now, this is the Scott version, so just listen to me. Good thing you finally figured it out. But blessed are those who don't see and yet believe. It's called the definition of faith right there. You don't see it, but you still believe it with that. You see, there's a blessing that comes for people who have stuck with something and believe it. There's a blessing for those who stick by a child who isn't really getting it and is messing up in their life. There's a blessing for the wife who sticks with the husband. I'm not talking about abuse issues, but sticks by the husband who's just not understanding situations. And on and on. I mean, I've had employees that when they start working for me, they're not real great employees, and they know it, right? And then and no one stuck by them. And my wife and I have stuck by those people and helped them to develop into people that they are now today. And that is that faith point. You see, your friends and family who don't believe anything until Trump is in office, it's a vision of faith that they have none. They're going to be in a pause mode. It's the exact conversation, as I bring this back up on the screen, it's the conversations I've had over and over again in Revelations of the Red Pill. Now, I wrote this in late 21. I haven't written another book since that time frame, which I probably should be getting to. But you have no idea how busy I get. But here's the point. If you can't believe something without seeing it, how much are you going to be a leader in the next time frame? God's preparing you to be a leader. If you've been believing this kind of thing, stick with what your beliefs are. Don't let anxiousness and fear and doubt cloud you, because you've already had the evidences, and the evidences are already coming true. Hope that helps you out, guys. Thanks.